Well, good morning, good afternoon, good evening, everybody. I'm Beatrice Mercado with Bennett Mercado Hospitality. Welcome back to our Masterclass series. I'm joined by Maggie Abdallah, our executive producer. Many of you know her name and her face. She keeps us in line during these Masterclass sessions. And today we have a very, very special guest, Rouhet Oosthuizen, founder of Africa Rome, our DMC partner. She is based in Cape Town.
Hi.
Good
Hi,
evening,
everyone.
I have the hardest time saying your name, but I try my best. Before we get started with Rue, I'm going to turn it over to Maggie to give all of us a few reminders for our masterclass today.
Okay, everyone, just to remind you that we are recording the session. So if you're popping in a little later or have to leave, don't worry. I'll send you a link with the recording so you don't miss anything. Also, you can rewatch at your own leisure, as well as if you have questions. I know a few of you sent in questions ahead of time, which Rue has already reviewed, but if you have a question during the presentation, put them in the chat or the Q&A box, and I'll make sure to read them out loud to Rue one at a time. If we don't get to your question or we run out of time, don't worry. I'll make sure Rue gets all the questions so that she can answer it offline and outside the group. So don't worry. We want to make sure all questions get answered. We probably will hold most questions till the end unless we feel like a lot of questions are coming up about a specific topic, in which case I'll kind of stop Rue and just kind of bring up the questions that have come about. With all that said, you will be getting follow-up from me, which with Rue's direct contact information, of course, a link to the recording, and as well as the next masterclass series that we want to have with Rue, because we know this is a big topic. So we don't expect to cover everything today. We want to be mindful of your time that you're joining with us. So we may split this up to a second masterclass this fall. Rue, I'm going to turn it over to you.
Yes, thank you so much, Maggie. Well, Rue, welcome back. I just want to give a quick introduction to who you are for advisors who've not met you in person or haven't joined our virtual seminars. Can you tell us a little bit about yourself and a little bit about Africa Rome, please?
Hi, everyone. I'm in Cape Town at the moment. I'm the owner and the founder of Africa Rome, and we are a little company with a big heart and just trying to promote Africa and to educate everyone in the sense of enticing people to come and visit because it's such a magical place. So the business has been going strong. We started in 2019 and things went a bit wobbly. And luckily we were able to stand on our feet. So it's been a fantastic year. Just come back from the United States with Bennett Mercado roadshows, which was really fantastic, and just meeting everyone in person. And we're ready. The team's ready to rock and roll. We're seeing a lot of interest in Africa. I think people are all of a sudden really taking a bucket list much more seriously because you just don't know when you're not going to be able to do it. So we decided to do this because it's such an interesting topic, but a very confusing one. So that's how we got to decide to do masterclass on migration.
Wonderful.
Yeah.
Thank you, Rue. And for those who have not met Rue, even though her company was founded in 2019, you've been working in this space for over 2 decades. So prior to launching your own company, you were one of the top designers for a very large firm and really have fantastic relationships with all the people on the ground. And advisors who get to plan an itinerary with Africa Rome, you're dealing with Rue directly. So you're dealing with the one that knows every little detail of Africa and of your clients' itineraries. Well, Rue, should we get started with this masterclass on the Great Migration?
Let's get moving.
All right, let's get moving. Perfect, Rue. I will hand it over to you to walk us through how advisors can sell this period to see the greatest show on earth.
Thanks. Okay, well, everyone, we are talking about the migration in East Africa today, and I'm trying to explain what it is that people are asking you, what they in their minds think the migration is. And I think all of us, this photograph, I've chosen this to start with, is actually the herd, part of the masses of herd crossing the Mara River. This is what people perceive as the migration. But we, going forward, I think for all of our sakes, we need to call this the crossing, so that we are trying to teach ourselves the correct terminology and we don't cross our lines when we speak to people, and we don't give people the wrong information when the client's on the telephone and they say, I want to see the migration because this is just a little bit of the migration. B, if you can go to the next slide. So what I've done is I've put a map of Kenya, predominantly Kenya, but I want to, if you can have a look to the very left and a bit below where the dark green area stops, you'll see it says Serengeti National Park, Tanzania. That is what we are talking about. Now, if you look at that massive land mass, that's Kenya, and all the different areas that is in addition to the Serengeti, you can imagine why clients are completely overwhelmed when they trying to figure out how to book Africa. Never mind the question of, I want to go to Africa. Should I go to East Africa or do I go to South Africa or Southern Africa? We're now specifically looking at the question of, I want to go to East Africa and I want to see the migration. And I think what everyone means is, I want to see the wildebeests crossing the Mara River, which is the previous photograph. But if you look at this little map, you'll see that the Masai Mara is a really small area in what is the greater Serengeti and Mara ecosystem. This area, if you can imagine, it's about the size of South Carolina. So it's a massive piece of land that is completely protected, and it hosts this phenomenal thing called the migration. And the migration is taking place throughout the year. It's not something that happens from June to October, which people are under the impression that it does, I suppose most people. And so what we're trying to do tonight is to give a better perspective of where you have to go, when you have to go, and why you should go to that certain area, depending on a client's budget, depending on a client's interest, depending on what time of the year the client wants to travel. So that is the aim, and I hope these maps will help you. B, if we can go to the following one. So that is the basic premise of the whole thing. The migration takes place because the wildebeest, some of you might know them as gnus, GNU. The gnus or the wildebeest, they migrate with zebra and they migrate with Thompson's gazelle. And together it's something like 2 million animals that have this movement, as this map shows, that takes place every day of the year. It's a very informative map, which I really love, and I got this courtesy from one of my partners that I work with. They show you where the animals are moving and what is actually happening at what time of the year. So beginning of the year, you can see the rains, the November, December, they're coming into the southern part where the short grass is. And that's when it's really beautiful summertime. So if you want people to escape the long winter or February cold or get them out, then that's a really good place to send someone, because it's quite an interesting experience to watch a wildebeest in the hundreds of thousands dropping their babies, dropping the calves during the calving season. You can imagine it's like a free for all with the predators that is just in abundance, and it's just such a wildlife experience. It's something quite extraordinary, and I personally think it's something that's rather undermined in a way, because people just they don't know about it, because everyone is so fixated on this crossing of the Mara River that they actually forget that there's a whole another aspect to these animals, because obviously babies can't cross the Mara River, so they have to have the baby somewhere and let them get strong enough to eventually get to that river to cross. So it's a really interesting way to start learning about it and experiencing it. And I've mentioned this before. If you've got people that's really, really interested in safari, and I know there are a lot of people out there that is, then you can actually say to them, look, there's two different ways to do it. The first time you go to East Africa, I'll suggest you do the crossing. The second time you go to East Africa, I suggest you go to the southern part of the Serengeti and do the calving and see how these babies are born. Of course, it's quite an incredible scenario with all the predators. As I said, waiting in the grasses, and it's a feast for all. So it's a very interesting, from a photographic standpoint, also a very interesting time to see the animals. And for people that's interested in photography, this would be a really good place for them to take really, really good shots, close-ups of animals. And also you can of course combine that southern trip to the Serengeti, which the February date is usually good, with something like the Seychelles or something in South Africa, because it's summer in the Southern Hemisphere. So for people that want to get out of the dark winter, that's a really nice option. And it's less expensive because it's not peak season. Peak season is from June to October. But what happens after the babies have calved, they move, as you can see, this map shows, they move up into the long grass plains. April and May, everyone asks always, that's the long rains. So in April and May, we have long rains. And then they move into the Western Corridor. So most of you will be familiar with properties like the Singita properties, which have this phenomenal location. That's where you really want to try and get yourself situated. But of course, there's closure sometimes. in the Grumeti because of a bulk book out, exclusive use booking, or people that's basically planned this trip like 2 years in advance, which brings me to another point. Is a client is going to ask you, I want to go and do this. How long should I plan ahead? And I'm going to say, right now, you're going to need a year in advance to plan something like this. The camps are already filling up for the migration crossing period, July, August, September, October of 2023.
Wow.
I spoke to Great Plains Conservation, which is one of the suppliers that I use specifically in Kenya, and I thought I made a typo and meant 2022, and they said no, 2023 is already starting to fill up. So I would suggest that if you have people that's interested in this kind of thing, that you bring it to their attention and say, you might have a waiting list. You might only be able to do this in 2 years' time, the way that things are going now. So don't leave it, because before you know it, it's just not going to happen. I personally,
Great tip, Ru. So we're about a year out from this time.
Yeah. Because I'm already getting requests for next year's migration. Well, I'm saying the wrong words. I'm getting requests for next year's
Crossing.
Thank you. Practice what you preach. So yes, it's incredible because it's so popular, and you really need to know where to go. Otherwise, you might just get yourself in a situation where you've put the clients in the completely wrong area. Because honestly, in October, if someone says to you they want to see the migration and they mean the crossing, then in October it's kind of too late. And of course, saying this, and people that sell Africa and that understand the way that the ecosystems work here, we are completely and utterly dependent on nature. Mother Nature rules us, and she dictates how things work. So I know a lot of people ask, do we know exactly when the crossing takes place? And the answer is no, we don't, but we have an idea. And because of historical surveys and a lot of research that's done, we generally know that the wildebeests cross the Grumeti River around June, and then they're going by July, August, they cross the Mara River. So in general, I would say August is probably a really good month to play it safe. If someone is genuinely adamant that they want to see the river crossing. And then the next thing is that they're going to have to be prepared to sit in a vehicle for hours, because the way that we suggest it and the way we book it is to have a private vehicle at the camp where you stay, and you and your guide go out for the entire day. They pack lunch for you, and you've got all the snacks and wonderful food that you need. But you spend the day out, because you can sit at a crossing point where the guides know that they're expecting, the crossing to take place, but you might have to wait for 2 hours. So you need a bit of patience, and you need to be really into this kind of wildlife experience. I do not recommend this for young children, even teenagers. I think unless it's a child that is extremely interested, I think it's really tough for kids to concentrate on something like this. As an adult, I think I see myself as an adult now that I sometimes, I don't want to say it's work, because it's definitely not work, but it certainly takes a huge amount of concentration, because you become so aware of your environment and you get so stimulated by the smallest things. So it's for people that are genuinely interested in the wildlife aspect and that can pay an enormous amount of money, because unfortunately these trips are so expensive, especially during this peak season, which is June to October. You're looking at least $2,000 per person per night, and that's just for standard, a 5-star standard accommodation, but that's not without a private vehicle and a balloon flight and your flights and your pre and post accommodation. So it's a pretty expensive experience. And I would say that when you decide to do this, that you really concentrate and do it properly and spend 10 nights on this type of safari, where you split it up, I would say, between 3 different camps. In the Mara, if you want to do the crossing, the July to October, you should be in Kenya. And then on the other months, you can see through this map, you're in the Serengeti in Tanzania. So that's about, I mean, I can talk a lot more about it, but I think that's really the bulk of it. B, can you just go to the next slide, please? Yeah, so those things, I would use those as a questionnaire for people. Location, when can they travel? If they can't travel between July to October or July to September, and they want to see the crossing, then you mustn't let them go, because they're going to be very disappointed. They might miss it, and they'll be furious with all of us. Mobile camping versus a fixed location. You won't believe this, but the mobile camping is sometimes far more expensive, because it's such a logistical exercise that the camps have to do, but it's such an incredible experience. My suggestion,
what that entails, Ru, for mobile camping, what is that setup like?
well, it's definitely extremely luxurious, in the sense, I don't want to use the word glamping, because it's more than that. It's very luxurious accommodation in a tent. But what the companies do is they follow really the animals, and they move the camp to where the animals are really like you in the midst of it. So you don't move around every day, but your camp is set up. So for example, there's set dates, and you go between 30 August and 5 September, and you stay in this camp, and they know that the herds are moving through this area, and you're really in the middle of it. So it just means that instead of having a fixed, like a lodge or a camp that's fixed in the sense that it's permanent, this is a setup that is quite different. You're going to have a bucket shower, but you're going to have a very hot shower, but it's just going to be a completely different kettle of fish. And what I usually suggest to people, this is also, it's very expensive because it's exclusive use. I would suggest it's people that know, like if you have a group of friends and like 3 couples that know each other, that's been lifelong friends, and they want to celebrate something, this is the kind of thing I would say that you combine then with another camp that is more permanent and a bit more luxurious. So what I would do is I would start with something just to settle people that's also tented, and then do a mobile camping, and then add something a bit more luxurious, and not necessarily in the Mara, but something maybe north, Laikipia, Samburu, a different part of Kenya. But that's a conversation that can become so complicated, because what I should concentrate on today is literally the migration route and the areas where people want to see the crossing. So sorry, I completely digress. Mobile camping is a fantastic way to do it, but it's expensive, and it's not for everyone.
Thank you, Ru.
The region, Tanzania, Kenya, that depends. Again, Tanzania is the bulk of the movement of the animals take place in Tanzania. So for most of the time, everything is in Tanzania. For Kenya, it's the period July to October. October, they're already starting to turn south, but they're still in Kenya. And then, dollars. Kenya is generally less expensive, however, in peak season, which is when the crossing is in the Mara, of course it's not. So you can spend in different times, during different times of the year, you can have people spend from $800 per person up to $3,000 per person per night. So it honestly depends what the guest wants, private charters or not, private vehicles, private guides. If someone has the means, I'm going to say absolutely encourage them to actually have a private guide travel with them as well, because it will honestly change the entire life forever. You're never the same after you've got a private guide on a safari that explains every little bit of what you see and smell around you in the greatest detail. So it's that money is it's worth it if you have it, but if you don't worry, you're still going to have an amazing time without having that privilege. It's like flying first class versus premium economy, I suppose. Something like that.
Good comparison.
And then how long? I always say minimum 10 nights. I never think there's a wrong time to go. I think there's something spectacular during the entire year. So for people that, that don't want to travel when the other people are traveling, the peak season is, I try and encourage people to travel during low season. There are good stuff out there. And despite the fact that the wildebeest and the zebra and the gazelle are moving, it doesn't mean that there's not animals left that's like permanent residents of the Serengeti. So just in your mind, don't have this picture that when the animals move, it's like desolate, there's nothing left. There's resident animals that are permanently, they've decided they're not interested in the movement. So they are stationed in these different areas. Rouhet is one of those places. That's why the Singitas are doing so well, because there's always animals, and it doesn't necessarily ride on the herds, the migration that comes through. So yeah, no, never a wrong time. And then the next one, I think, is just a synopsis of, yeah, so I just made the synopsis for you so that you can, it's like a little cheat sheet, just so that you can remember the main things. This is really all you need to memorize.
Advisors, take a screenshot right now.
Yeah, I was going to say take a screenshot. And Ru, I know I've kind of seen the questions that you've answered already, so this has always been super informative. But I did want to remind that we do have a library of some of Ru's masterclasses that we did during the pandemic on our YouTube channel, specifically one that was about traveling if you didn't have a school vacation calendar that you had to work around. For those that wanted to travel off peak season, Ru gave some great itineraries and suggestions for travelers that had a lot more flexibility in their travel schedules. So make sure to look for that on our YouTube channel. As well as, I think Ru even touched on the fact that what would be our topic for our next master classes, specifically on what conservatories, what camps and lodging she would recommend for different itineraries. So I think we can pinpoint some when to do where, which I think is the burning question for a lot of you that you may have now that we're talking about, you're looking at seasons and what time your travelers want to travel. So that definitely segues into our next masterclass.
Yeah, that is literally another masterclass worth, because I don't want to call it complicated. It's just that you just need to kind of understand where the lodges are situated so that you place people in the correct area at the correct time of the year.
Definitely. Do we have any last minute questions for Ru before because we're hitting a 30-minute mark, and I want to be cognizant of everybody's time, knowing that you have a million things going on in your inbox and phones ringing. So if you have any other questions, feel free to put them in the chat. If not, or if you think of things later, I will be copying Ru on my follow-up. So if you want to respond to her and ask some specific questions. Ru, as always, I learned so much when speaking with you. Can you tell that she's a wealth of knowledge on all things Africa? And she is just so helpful and thinks about a lot of different scenarios and is very creative. And as Ru likes to say, when everybody else turns right, she turns left. So she's thinking outside the box, knowing that what demand there is for Africa right now.
Ru,
Thanks, Matt.
you talked about the baby calves being born. Can you share with us how many babies are born throughout this movement?
I know we just found this out. It was interesting.
Vet just loves this. So it's estimated that in February, when they're in the southern plains of the Serengeti, the calves there are 400,000 calves being dropped or born. And I mean, you can't fathom that kind of number, you know.
Incredible.
It is incredible. The smell, the sound, the just the energy that you have around you. And you know, the wonderful thing is that this has been going on for thousands of years, and we just kind of learning about it now. It astonishes me that nature has just been going around and around, and our mere mortality, you know, these guys are, I mean, it's their instinct that has taught them and guided them to survive, and to the whole reason this whole thing is happening is because of rainfall. So the rain falls, the grass grows, and then they go.
Yeah.
We
Thank
did get
you.
a last minute question. Rue. Do you
Oh.
recommend a private guide on safari in Botswana, Zimbabwe, and South Africa?
Ellen, hi, lovely to hear from you.
Hi, Ellen.
If guests have the means, yes, always. I hope that answers.
Yeah, no, it's very succinct. So it's a great question, Ellen, as always. Well, if that is all from everyone, I think that, Bea, do you have any final thoughts?
No, I just wanted to share some of these images that Rue
Mhm.
wanted to present to the viewers because they really are remarkable. Rue, can you tell us a little bit about hot air balloon rides? Because I saw you had some beautiful imagery of that.
Yeah, so the hot air balloon flight, I know that's a lot of people are very interested in that. So that is, of course, something you do in East Africa. And I always kind of just add that into the itinerary because you need to do it. So that's very easy to arrange. And it's about $500 for a morning flight. You have to get up early. And that's the other thing. If you guys, if you someone that doesn't, if you don't like to get up early, then a safari is probably not the best.
Final tip.
Rue is talking about me, everyone. I am not a morning person, but I will happily wake up.
But it's worth it. It's worth getting up. I promise you.
Well, we've posted Rue's contact details on the screen for you. So please take a screenshot, write it down. Of course, Maggie, our great executive producer, will be sharing with all attendees Rue's personal contact details as well. Please follow Rue on Instagram, follow Bennett Mercado on all your social channels. And we'll leave it just for one more moment. Anyone else have any final questions for Rue? Please put it in the chat.
Thanks for everyone's time. Appreciate it.
Oh, we appreciate you staying up late.
Yes, we are live.
We are live from South Africa.
Well, to our guests, happy summer, happy Pride. Rue, thank you very much for this wonderful overview of the migration. And advisors, please mark the date of September 28th, which is a Wednesday, where you're going to be invited to join Rue on another masterclass session. As Maggie mentioned, we're going to talk about specific conservancies, when to book. So more specific details on this very much a bucket list trip from most. All right, well, thank you, everybody. Enjoy your day. Thank you, Rue. Thank you, Maggie.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Have a good
Bye,
day.
everybody.
Bye.